Welcome back to my series where I review follower Chief Gear. And this person has also asked me to take a look at their heroes. So I'm going to start with the Chief Gear and Charms, and then I'll move over to the heroes. Now, this person is their power is a 301, and they're an FC7. They are in an older state than me. As a reminder, I am currently at this exact moment in 3036, and they're in a state that is older than that. So just taking a glance at their Chief Gear off the bat, I would say that they are a free to play player. Like, I don't think there's any way that this person is a pay to play player. So we are going to start with the infantry Chief Gear, and we can see that their infantry gear is at mythic or gold, T2 3 stars, and their pants are also at mythic T2 3 stars. Their marksman is Chief Gear. The ring is at T1 purple, and then the staff is also at T1 purple. And then the Lancer gear is T1 purple, and the compass is also at T1 purple. So I do like that it's matchy, right? The left matches the right. But there is a pretty big gap between the infantry gear and the marksman and lancer gear. So infantry is important, and they should definitely be the strongest of the three. But I think she needs to bring up her either her marksman or her lancer gear or both, depending on how she plays. Now, I've talked about this in the past, and so it's kind of like I'm a broken record if you've watched all my videos. But because this is for her, if she plays with a mixture of infantry, marksmen, and lancers, then she's going to want to have them all be stair step where it goes. So it would be like T2 3 stars for infantry, T1 3 stars, or T2 2 stars for marksmen, and then lancers would just be right below that, right? We wouldn't want to have this big of a gap that she's got between her, infantry gear and her other gear. And so if she plays, 49 to 49, she could leave her lancer gear a little further back because she's not relying on the lancer gear. But her marksman gear would need to be higher. If she plays 60, 40, 0, then her lancer gear should be higher and her marksman could be a little lower. Now, obviously, keeping your marksman lower, that will impact your bear score. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it if you play bear and you prioritize bear. So most people play bear and prioritize, especially if, like I assume, she is free to play. She probably needs those essence stones. So now we're going to take a look at her charms. And these are at 4. These are at 3. So that is pretty low for marksman charms for the length of time that I think she's been playing. And then you can see these are at 8 and 6. And over here, these are at 6. And then if we look at her Lancer gear, her Lancers, those are at 4. And then this is 433. So her, again, she is really focused heavily on her infantry. And infantry is important. Infantry, she probably has incredible infantry stats compared to everything else. But it's unlikely that she plays 100% infantry. And so she's giving herself a disadvantage in not also bringing up her her other gear. So what I would say, and I'm going to assume because she's in an older state, that they are probably using something like 48, 448. And so I would say she should bring up the marksman gear, bring up her marksman gear to where it's at least T1, and then bring up the marksman charms so they're at least equal to the infantry. I would then bring up the Lancer gear to where it is gold. It can just be gold 2 stars. It doesn't have to be T1 or a T2. And then I would bring the Lancer charms up to probably a 5, because the rest of these are, 6 and 8. So I'd probably bring them up to a 4 or 5. Those are already a 4, so yeah, like she wouldn't have to bring them up that high. I would definitely bring the marksman charms up higher. But again, it kind of does depend on how she plays and what her role is in her alliance. So now let's take a look at her heroes. So she's at least got Generation 5 heroes because she has Gwen. And she, focused on the goggles and boots, which is perfect. She didn't neglect the glove and belt. Her widget is at a 5, which is a really reasonable widget especially for a free-to-play player. She'll be, I'm guessing she's not already in Gen 8 because she doesn't have Bradley, although she is free to play, so she might have him, but she might not have him in a place where he can replace Gwen yet. But so far, Gwen is looking really good. Like, Gwen's in great shape. I think that, she can continue working on Gwen the way she's been doing. Now, Reyna, her Lancer, is a lot further behind than Gwen. You'll notice that none of Reyna's gear is legendary. And then if we look at Gwen, her goggles and her boots are at level 11. And if we look at Reyna, these are only at 7 and 4. So Reyna's gear the Lancer gear has been, I'm going to use the word neglected a little bit more. And so I would just, again, this could be if they use, 49 249 or 48 448, then your Lancer gear and stats is not as important. But as we've discussed in the past, as you get to have a well, you might have a well that wants to use 60-40 or something like that. So you really want to think about what the expectation is of your state. And whether you have to, if you're solo attacking, do they expect you to use that attack? So for instance, for my state, when during SPS, they say, here's what we would like. They want us all to use the same so that anybody can join any of the shot callers, the rally callers' rallies, right? So if I'm using 50, 15, 35, and somebody else is using 48, 448, then when joiners join, they have to go in and figure out which squad to use. And if they just have a preset squad that is matches and we're all the same, then it makes it a lot easier. So, I just looking at this, this would be fine if that's what her state calls for, but she's not exactly a strong player, so I would say that she probably should go ahead and have her lancers, and rely a little heavier on her lancers in addition to her infantry and marksmen. And then Hector, it's like we saw with the Chief Gear. She really prioritized her infantry gear. And so she not only did the more critical 2 pieces of the glove and the belt for Hector, but she also brought up the goggles and the boots. So his attack stats are probably pretty strong. His defense stats are pretty strong. And then her Lancer stats are not good. There's definitely a weakness in her Lancer stats. And then her marksman stats, Gwen kind of brings those up. But again, when we look here, we can see that they're not great here. So I would say that she should bring up her Lancer Chief Gear, and then focus on her Gwen's gloves and belts, and forge those a couple more levels. So get those up to like a level 6 here. So she doesn't have to make them legendary just yet. Whoops. She doesn't have to make them legendary just yet, but I do think that she needs to bring them up a little higher for just their overall stats. And then she should also look at how she uses her lancers. And if she's using her lancers, then she's neglecting them too much. She really needs to go in, and this should be the first thing that she does. If she uses lancers at all, she should go in and upgrade Reyna and get Reyna to where she looks more like Gwen. And then once Reyna looks more like Gwen, then she can go back and focus on Gwen's glove and belt and get it up to a 6. And she doesn't even have to touch Hector for a while because he's in such a good spot. She could leave him there while she gets these other 2 where they need to be, and then she should go in and upgrade Hector and Gwen and maybe Reyna, depending on how they do battle in her state. And so that's my advice. And as always, if you have questions or comments, or you disagree with something I've said, I encourage you to leave a comment or send me a DM. And thank you for watching my videos. If you like what I do, please like, subscribe, comment, repost, all of the things. Have a great day.